From Mexico to Arizona, Donald Trump discusses immigration on both sides of the border.
And Mexico will pay for the wall.
How he's using the issue to challenge Hillary Clinton. Care of creation. The Pope makes a new connection between protecting the environment and works of mercy. Bracing for severe storms, tropical weather looms over Florida just days before the holiday weekend. And bigger than life, a new image of Mother Teresa unveiled in Rome and Washington, D.C., setting the stage for this weekend's canonization. On EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, September 1st, 2016. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Donald Trump delivers a hardline speech on immigration, a sharp contrast to his friendly meeting with Mexico's president just hours earlier.
Mr. President, I want to thank you.
Donald Trump traveling from the U.S. to Mexico and back on Wednesday after a week of apparent back-and-forth positions on immigration. Trump meeting with Mexico's president.
It's been a tremendous honor, and I call you a friend. Thank you.
Trump's warm tone in Mexico caught fire in Arizona just hours later during an electric speech on immigration.
There will be no amnesty.
Trump slammed the Obama administration, claiming they failed to understand the scale of the undocumented immigrant problem in the U.S.
It could be 3 million, it could be 30 million. They have no idea what the number is.
And he attacked Hillary Clinton.
She promises uncontrolled, low-skilled immigration.
After deriding Clinton's plan, Trump presented his own, starting with the promise he's reiterated many times.
We will build a great wall along the southern border, and Mexico will pay for the wall.
Trump laid out a multi-point plan that included tough enforcement of existing laws, scrapping some executive orders on immigration, and zero tolerance for undocumented immigrants arrested for crimes in the U.S.
I am going to create a new special deportation task force.
And he used the moment to take yet another swipe at Clinton.
Maybe they'll be able to deport her.
The battle continues this afternoon over who will pay for a wall Trump will build between Mexico and the U.S. Yesterday, after meeting with Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto, Trump said he did not discuss who will pay for it. Donald Trump tweeted this afternoon, quote, "Mexico will pay for the wall." Seeming to contradict him, Mexico's president tweeted in response, "I'm repeating what I told you personally, Mr. Trump. Mexico will never pay for a wall." And we'll have more on Donald Trump and Catholic voters in just a moment. But first, Clinton's running mate, Tim Kaine, says Donald Trump caved and choked in his meeting with the Mexican president, since he never discussed his demand that Mexico pay for the wall. Vice President Biden also blasts Trump, saying he just doesn't get it. Biden tells voters in Ohio Trump is irresponsible and shouldn't be given access to America's nuclear codes.
He doesn't understand this any more than you understand what it's like to live in a 30,000 square foot penthouse, 80 floors up in New York.
A frequent News Nightly guest says he's withdrawing his support for Trump over the immigration issue. Alfonso Aguilar is president of the Latino Partnership for Conservative Principles.
He gave the impression, and the campaign gave the impression till yesterday morning, that he was going to deal with the undocumented in a compassionate way. And in that speech, he's basically saying, we deport you or we self-deport you. It's even worse than what he initially proposed. I'm telling you today, I'm withdrawing my support from Donald Trump. And it's not only me, many like me think the same way.
Joining me now, Stephen White is a fellow at Catholic Studies program at the Ethics and Public Policy Center. He's the author of the book Red, White, Blue, and Catholic. Thank you for joining us again.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
25% of the electorate is Catholic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Hillary Clinton has captured a majority of that support. There was a big story in the Washington Post this week, and there's also a PRRI poll I want to bring up so that we can talk about it. Trump is trailing among Catholics by a huge margin. Take a look at this. It's 55% for Clinton, 32% for Trump. And there's another poll that shows Clinton leading Trump by 27%. Why have Catholics shifted to Clinton?
Well, there's really two things going on here, I think. And these are just a handful of polls, but they do suggest a trend away from Trump, at least. And I think that's the first point, is that this is more a lack of support for Donald Trump among Catholics than it is overwhelming support for Hillary Clinton. Barack Obama won something like 50, low majority of Catholics in the last election. 55% is not far off from that.
Yeah, here, let's take a look at that. We actually have that right here. The Catholic vote was neck and neck in 2012, right here. So 50% for President Obama and 48% for Mitt Romney.
So Catholic support for the Democratic candidate this year is higher than it was at the election last year. But what's really fallen off is Catholic support for the Republican candidate. So suggests this, and there are other polls too. There was an article about a month ago suggesting that one of the biggest shifts in the Catholic vote comes from an unlikely source, namely the weekly Mass attending Catholics, the group that most closely correlates with voting Republican, is leaving support for the Republican Party, at least at the presidential level, and that the support that's moving towards Hillary Clinton is overwhelmingly a sort of a protest support. It's not really strong support for Clinton, but it's in protest to Donald Trump.
And is it these weekly Mass Catholics that are going to Clinton?
There's some evidence that suggests that's what it is. It's tough to tell because a lot of these polls have a sample size that doesn't let you do careful sort of cross-references of different sectors of the population. But it doesn't seem to be the sort of obvious targets. For example, Latino voters, Latino Catholics tend to support Democrats already, and it doesn't seem like Hillary Clinton's doing much better than, say, Barack Obama did among Hispanic Catholics. She's doing very, very well, and she's trouncing Trump in that category, but that's not exactly new.
Very quickly, we have to go, but Trump has dug himself a pretty big hole, I think you would agree, with Latinos. Can he climb out? I'm
skeptical that he can for one simple reason, is that his big problem is believability. I think he's lost a lot of credibility with voters because they don't believe what he says. And so him changing his tune or trying to sort of, oh, well, this time I'm serious or this time I'm going to play it straight is not likely to resonate with people who've been turned off.
Okay, thank you so much, Stephen. We appreciate you joining us. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. An explosion destroys a SpaceX rocket on a launch pad at Cape Canaveral. The blast shook buildings for miles around and sent a plume of thick black smoke high into the sky. No one was hurt. The explosion destroyed both the rocket and a Facebook satellite that was going to expand internet access in Africa. Tropical storm Hermine has upgraded to a hurricane. Forecasters say dangerous storm surge combined with the tide could trigger life-threatening flooding.
Walked in the garage and there's a river going through my garage.
I've been watching the water, watching it rise, so if it gets to a certain point, then I will leave.
Tornadoes are also a possibility. Counties in Florida and Georgia are under state of emergency. It's been more than 10 years since Florida has taken a direct hit. Hawaii braces for a tropical storm, Madeline, and then Hurricane Lester. Residents are boarding up buildings, hoping to limit the damage. Madeline is moving south, but it could still lash Hawaii with strong winds. And President Obama is in Hawaii for an environmental conference. He's staying at a beachfront community at Kailua.
There's no conflict between a healthy economy and a healthy planet. And that's why I've committed, along with Canada and Mexico, to get 50% of U.S. electricity from clean sources by 2025.
The president's comments come a day before the opening ceremony of the World Conservation Congress. Next stop for the president is the G20 summit in China. Pope Francis proposes a new work of mercy, caring for the environment. The Holy Father says care for God's creation complements the traditional 7 corporal and spiritual works of mercy. Wyatt Goolsby reports.
Lauren, you may remember a few of those works of mercy: feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit the sick. Well, Pope Francis says care for our common home is just as important.
The Holy Father proposed the addition to the works of mercy in a written message today. His comments come as the Church marks World Day of Prayer for the Care of Creation. Cardinal Peter Turkson has been the Pope's point man on environmental issues, helping him draft his landmark encyclical last year.
This message is the next logical step after Laudato Si, for it shows us how to internalize its teaching in our lives and in our world, and it asks us to live Laudato Si.
In his statement, Francis says caring for our common home is a complement to both the spiritual and corporal works of mercy, which the Church sees as traditional acts of penance and charity. Lucia Selecchia at the Catholic University of America has written extensively on his 2015 encyclical.
As he did with Laudato Si, this statement is filled with both practical advice on things to do, but then also spiritual connections to prior teachings and what care for creation may mean for our relationship with God.
By referencing the works of mercy, Selecchia says the Holy Father is reminding Catholics that this is a Jubilee year of mercy, but the Holy Father doesn't see this as just a Catholic issue.
He does see it as an important part of ecumenical dialogue, as did his predecessors, and in fact his selection of September 1st as this day of celebration is a link to the Orthodox tradition, who have celebrated this since 1989. And it was, again, a step forward in ecumenical dialogue.
In today's statement, Pope Francis is focused on what individuals can do to better care for God's creation. That's different from his encyclical, where he challenges governments and society as a whole to make sure the earth is not exploited. Lauren?
Thank you, Wyatt. Ed Penton, Rome correspondent for EWTN's National Catholic Register, joins us. Ed, how important is the care of creation to this Pope?
It's very important, Lauren, and but it actually dates back to Paul VI, who was first to raise the issue of safeguarding creation, and it's progressively got more important with pontificates ever since. John Paul II raised it, Benedict XVI raised it in quite an extensive way, and now Francis has taken it to a higher level.
What exactly is care of creation? Many in America think addressing this topic when it comes to global warming and other environmental issues is out of his purview.
Well, I think he feels, as many do today, that there's an urgent necessity to deal with this issue. The Pope Francis believes very strongly in the science of climate change, it seems, and I think he thinks that there is an urgent need to address it. But I think this latest message, I think, just proves that, and it follows, of course, his encyclical Laudato Si, which addressed this very extensively indeed.
Will the Pope really add this to the works of mercy, or is it just more of a suggestion and something he's thinking about?
It's a good question, Lauren, because people aren't quite sure. He talked about proposing. He said, let me propose a new, to complement rather, the corporal and spiritual acts of mercy with this new message of care for the environment. But it's not clear really whether it's going to be implementing some new law or new corporal or corporal act of mercy. So we just have to wait and see, and I think that's the Vatican's view too, is to just be patient and wait and see.
What kind of response do you think this will get, not just in Europe and around the world, but here in the United States?
I think it'll be mixed. I think a lot of people will be happy with it because a lot of people believe that there is climate change, and they believe that the science is accurate, and they feel very strongly that there's an urgent need to deal with this. And if you have the Pope's moral backing behind it, that's important. But others who are skeptical of the climate change science and feel that the environment's issues aren't quite so urgent, I think there'll be more, probably think this is quite unnecessary, and think that perhaps the Pope is wading into something which is beyond his competence. But we just have to wait and see, really, I think, to gauge the reaction worldwide.
Ed Penton, National Catholic Register. Ed, as always, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Lauren.
Coming up, Mother Teresa's official portrait. We'll talk to the North Carolina artist who designed it. And the president of March for Life tells us about Mother Teresa's impact on the pro-life movement. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Lauren Ashburn. A banner of the official portrait for Blessed Mother Teresa's canonization now hangs from St. Peter's Basilica, and today the American artist and Mother's sisters unveiled the original here in Washington. Jason Calvi gives us a snapshot.
They come to gaze on a family portrait. Their mother, soon to be a saint.
Radiating smile captures my heart.
Is that the Mother Teresa that you remember?
That's the real Mother Teresa that I remember. She must be smiling at you.
But North Carolina artist Chaz Fagan says at first, he struggled to capture her. He's painted all the presidents and created this statue of St. John Paul II, but finally was inspired by Mother Teresa's words, joy is strength.
People who met her and knew her, they talked about this expression, the glow and the joy in her face.
So, did he get it right?
Her eyes are so penetrating and her face is so peaceful, and she's focusing on someone that she's addressing to.
The Knights of Columbus commissioned the portrait. It's a gift to the order Mother Teresa founded, the Missionaries of Charity. Worldwide, they wear her habit and mirror her work, serving the poorest of the poor.
I've seen so many pictures of Mother, but the halo really says to me, she really is a saint.
A copy of the image now drapes St. Peter's Basilica, ready for the canonization on Sunday.
And the Knights have printed out 1 million of these holy cards, which they'll pass out at the canonization, and they'll be available at Missionary of Charity houses across the world.
The artist says his greatest audience is the sisters, touched by his work today.
And for me, that was the ultimate reward. Nothing better.
The sisters say they hope others will be touched by the image too.
It's like giving hope and courage and strength.
And tonight, helped by the prayers of a saint.
I think she will draw thousands and thousands of people to Jesus.
Jason Calvi, EWTN News Nightly.
That was a heartwarming story. Thank you, Jason. A new exhibit in Rome also celebrates Mother Teresa's life. It chronicles her childhood in Albania and her service to the poor in India and around the world. Tens of thousands of people are expected at her canonization ceremony on Sunday. And the White House is sending a presidential delegation led by Presidential Assistant Lisa Monaco. Those traveling to the canonization include U.S. Ambassador to the Holy See, Kenneth Hackett, Sister Donna Markham, President of Catholic Charities USA, and Carolyn Wu, the President of Catholic Relief Services. Jeannie Mancini is the president of the March for Life. Jeannie, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
You met Blessed Mother Teresa. Tell me about that experience.
A quick meeting. I went through and received a blessing and a medal from her, and it was just one of the highlights of my life, as you can imagine. It was just a few months before she died.
You wrote this article today in the Washington Times. It's titled, Canonizing Mother Teresa for Her Exaltation of Life. What do you mean by that?
Well, there is this terrible movement abroad in our culture right now. It's called Shout Your Abortion. And it's essentially to try to normalize and destigmatize abortion. So you saw, for example, at the Democratic National Convention, Elise Hogue of NARAL Pro-Choice America get up and talk about how proud and happy she was that she'd had an abortion of her first child. And you've heard Cecile Richards, president of Planned Parenthood, talk about how their family was complete at 3. So she's happy that they chose to terminate number 4. I mean, it's just so sad. Mother Teresa is just the antidote to that. Mother Teresa at the 1997 prayer breakfast said, I'll take your child. Don't kill your child. Please give me your child. I'll find a family who wants to adopt your child. I mean, it's like she's the total antidote to where our culture is right now.
So warm, so loving, so giving, so understanding.
And clear that abortion is taking a life, and it's a poverty.
Right.
Yeah.
So you also said in your article that she met with Hillary Clinton, and they were at the National Prayer Breakfast, but then they had a one-on-one. And in the Washington Times, you say, unfortunately, as is obvious in her stance today, Hillary refused to receive the truth in love. And I just want to push back a little bit on that, because what you're saying is, even though Hillary Clinton listened, she didn't receive truth. Isn't that sort of not addressing the fact that she did meet with her and just didn't agree with her? Doesn't it shut down the debate right away when you say something like this?
Well, you know, you're probably right. I probably overly simplified it, and certainly I wasn't there in the conversation. But truth is truth, and abortion is taking the life of one and wounding the life of another. And for whatever reason, Hillary Clinton, while she's been given lots of opportunities to hear the truth, hasn't received it. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't stop praying and fasting for her, because it is a spiritual battle. And some of the most pro-abortion people are some of the biggest converts to our issue. So really, I mean, please, viewers and listeners, continue to pray and fast for Hillary Clinton.
Wonderful. Jeannie Mancini is president of the March for Life. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
EWTN is planning extensive coverage of Mother Teresa's canonization. Watch Mother Teresa, The Legacy tomorrow afternoon. And then News Nightly's Mary Shovlin helps host our coverage from Rome. throughout the weekend, she will be seen. We have a complete list of special programs at EWTN.com. Just click on the Blessed Teresa of Calcutta banner at the top of the homepage. Up next, slave trade. Georgetown tries to rewrite a difficult chapter in the university's history. And the next generation of pro-life supporters. One woman's viewpoint draws national attention. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Pope Francis plans to travel to Assisi, where St. Francis was born, to pray for peace. The Holy Father will be joined September 20th by other Christian, Jewish, Muslim, and Buddhist leaders. And Georgetown University tries to make peace with its past. The oldest Catholic college in the country says it previously sold slaves to make money. Georgetown is now renaming 2 buildings on campus associated with the slave trade. Freedom Hall, once known as Mulady Hall, or Mulady Hall, Georgetowners, you can correct me, will be now called after a slave, Isaac. And Remembrance Hall, once known as McSherry Hall, will be named after Anne Marie Beecraft, a free woman who opened a school for African American girls in the 1820s. In an ongoing series on abortion and young women, Glamour magazine publishes a commentary piece by a young woman who's trying to shatter a false pro-life reputation. In an op-ed entitled, "Yes, I'm pro-life, but not a stereotype," Reagan Barkledge writes that pro-lifers don't want women to run into the abortion clinic because someone is harassing her. We want her to run to us because we are there for her with open arms, ready to help and love her while showing her alternatives to a decision she may regret. We're joined by the article's author, Reagan Barkledge. Reagan is the Midwest Regional Coordinator for Students for Life of America, and you're named after Ronald Reagan. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You wrote this article, fascinating article for Glamour, in which you say a professor screamed in your face when you were a college student at the University of Missouri saying, quote, "You're a disgrace to the woman race." And you go on to say that you are not a stereotypical protester who yells at women as they enter an abortion facility. Well, then, who are you as a pro-life woman?
So as a pro-life woman, I believe that in order to be pro-life, you have to be pro-woman first. And we have to be there to reach out to women facing an unplanned pregnancy and be there to support her and provide her with the resources that she needs. We're not going to win her over by condemning her and calling her names. That's not how we're going to save her and the life of her unborn child.
Tell me about these resources and these alternatives. You talked about diaper drives and having parties for them when they're pregnant. What are you doing?
So part of Students for Life mission is our Pregnant on Campus initiative, which we have launched in college campuses. And our college students work with our school's administration to make sure that schools are friendly to pregnant and parenting students, meaning that there's diaper decks available, lactation rooms. Women don't feel like they have to choose abortion because they can't go to school and be a mom. We don't want them to feel that way. So providing them with those tangible and community resources.
I was surprised to see that this article was in Glamour magazine. How did that happen? Were you surprised?
Oh, I was shocked. After I was filmed in the film Abortion Stories Women Tell, I was devastated to see how the film was biased towards the pro-abortion movement. And so I wrote a blog in my response to that, and Glamour happened to see it. So one of the editors reached out to me and asked if I would write something similar for them. They were doing a segment on abortion, so they wanted to have a pro-life piece, which was shocking to me. So I was very blessed to have that opportunity.
Well, it was part of an overall abortion series that they're doing, and you're right. To have a pro-life voice is very important, and I want to commend Glamour magazine for including you in this piece. Last thing before we go, you said that many women who have had abortion weren't aware of other options. Very quickly, we have to go, but what would you say to those women?
That there is healing for them. They're not alone. There's so many men and women suffering after their abortion, and we are here to provide healing for them.
Good job with everything that you're doing in the pro-life movement. Reagan Barklage, Students for Life of America, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And that does it for us for the EWTN News Nightly team. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Please follow us at EWTN and at Lauren Ashburn on Twitter and like us on Facebook. We leave you tonight with more images of Mother Teresa. You'll be able to see our piece on the unveiling of her official portrait on EWTN's YouTube channel. Subscribe to receive the entire show every night in your inbox. Good night and God bless.